Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? I think for what you're about to see, I think you can do better than that. I want you to try again, please. There you go. Much better. Welcome to the Canadian premiere of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Woo! My name is Jeff McNaughton. I'm the lead programmer of Prime Time and the senior director of industry and theatrical here at TIFF. As you join us today, we encourage you to reflect on the land that you are on and its history. We're located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. This territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, and is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We here at TIFF are very grateful to work on this land and bring work of Indigenous artists to our audiences year-round and during festival. A big thank you to our members, donors, and supporters for championing TIFF's mission to transform the way we see the world through film and TV. We truly could not achieve all of this without your ongoing support. And a big thanks to our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, RBC, Visa, and Bulgari, for all of their continued support, as well as our major government supporters, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, and of course the City of Toronto, which you might be seeing soon enough. Big thanks to Netflix for providing us with this incredible series tonight. One reminder, please turn off and put away your phones and other electrical devices. If you attempt to record, you consent to the review of your device by security personnel. We don't want that. And you may be removed from the screening. You definitely don't want that. Unauthorized recordings will be reported to law enforcement. Even worse. So please remember to keep all, and also, I should say, please keep spoilers to yourself until November 17th, in which you can start telling the world and all your friends in terms of your love for this series you're about to see. The Scott Pilgrim Cinematic Universe started as a graphic novel series created by Bryan Lee O'Malley in 2004. It was adapted to film by Edgar Wright in 2010. And this is when the world fell in love with Scott, Ramona, and of course, the city of Toronto. The film was named by the Globe and Mail as one of the best Canadian films of all time for its depiction of this city and its iconic landmarks such as Honest Ed's, rest in peace, Casa Loma, and of course, Pizza. As a side note, we currently have Mary Elizabeth Winstead's Ramona Flowers costume on display here at TIFF Bell Lightbox. So after the screening, you can go up to the new Varda Lounge on the 3rd floor and check out the costume on display. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off takes a narrative departure from the original text, guided by Bryan Lee O'Malley and his co-showrunner, BenDavid Grabinski. The cast from Wright's 2010 adaptation returned for their roles, including Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Chris Evans, and of course Jason Schwartzman, just to name a few. The series is beautifully animated by animation house Science Sara, whose past project credits include Adventure Time and Unuo. I'm so excited for you to see the first 3 episodes of this series tonight. It is a rare occasion because you get to see it on the big screen before anyone else. I'm even more excited because tonight we are thrilled to be joined by the co-showrunners Bryan Lee O'Malley and BenDavid Grabinski. O'Malley is a Canadian cartoonist and author. He created the award-winning New York Times best-selling Scott Pilgrim graphic novel series, which became the basis for the 2010 Universal film. His other projects include Seconds and Snot Girl. He lives in LA currently. Grabinski is a prolific showrunner, filmmaker, and producer. Past credits include the teen anthology series Are You Afraid of the Dark, as well as the dark romantic comedy Happily. Additionally, he wrote and directed the short film Cost of Living. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Bryan Lee O'Malley and BenDavid Grabinski.
Hey guys. I don't think I've ever used one of these before.
Hello, everyone. All right, so this is only the second time anyone has seen it besides our LA premiere, and I didn't even know why we were having an LA premiere because this is a Canada show. Forgive me for never having lived here, but Bryan did, and he is the reason it's all Canada and stuff. But when we found out we were going to have this, we got incredibly excited because the idea of watching this with a crowd here felt like the exact right way to kick off our release. So thank you, everyone, for coming out.
It's nice to see all your faces. I probably saw several of you last night at my signing at the Beguiling, the greatest comic store in the world. I don't know. What else are we going to say? We're very proud. We're very excited. Edgar Wright couldn't be here. Neither could the cast, unfortunately, but we are here in their stead. We made this show. We poured our blood, sweat, and tears, probably literally, into this show. Exactly. Science Saru animated it beautifully. Our director, Abel Gongora, he's a genius from Spain who ran away to Tokyo to become an animator. I think you're going to love it. There are some surprises.
Yeah, so we've spent this whole time keeping most of the plot of the show a secret because it was important to us that people could watch a show and never know where it was going next. So in about 25 minutes or so, you're going to find out exactly what the show is, and we hope that you don't tweet about it or put it on Reddit or anything, because
for 30 hours.
Yeah. Once it comes out, you can spoil it for everybody. We don't care at all. But if you can go until midnight PST tomorrow without letting people know how insane the show is, we would really, really appreciate it. And we will talk to you about why we made a bunch of weird decisions afterwards in a Q&A.
That's right. I mean, yeah, I've spent 2 years not even telling my family. My family's here tonight. Shout out to my family.
Oh, and my brother's here too, so shout out Joe for driving 400 hours from Iowa. And we'll save the rest of our talk until after. A friend of ours made a very short video that's going to play before it. So hope you guys sit down and enjoy the first 3 episodes of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Thanks.
Save your applause for these two gentlemen. Please welcome back to the stage Bryan Lee O'Malley and BenDavid Grabinski.
Is this thing on?
It is. Thanks for staying.
Thank you.
All right.
That was the first and maybe only time Gordon Goose from North Bay, Ontario got such a huge laugh.
Bryan's from North Bay. I wrote that monologue and it was almost exactly the same, and except he's like, his name should be Gordon Goose and he should be from North Bay, Ontario. And I was like, okay, fine, that makes it better. Okay.
Okay, so now you guys see what we don't want you to spoil for the next 30 hours.
But you might. I haven't looked at my phone yet. Maybe you already did.
And maybe some of you guys are already secretly texting.
I'm gonna start looking at Friendster and all these things to see who's writing about it.
All right. You lead now.
Yeah, no, I'll take over. I was hoping we could start the conversation by going back 20 years, actually. What was the original?
I was so young. I was 10.
You were
I had nothing to do with that, so I have nothing to say.
You look great. What was the original impetus of Scott Pilgrim and the world you created around him at that time?
I think a big part of it was I had drawn a book before, and it didn't make anyone laugh. It was a little bit of a sad book, and the other part was that I realized that you could use reference to draw things better. And I realized I lived in Toronto and it was all around me, so I had a lot of reference material all around me. So I was like, how about I set a book in my neighborhood, in my milieu of being in an indie band and screwing around all the time. That's about it, really. I didn't have like high aspirations. I was just like, oh, I could do this. I could draw this better if I look at my neighborhood.
I know, but you told me, you're like, one day I will make an anime of this and a movie and a video game and nothing will stop me.
That was the original plan all along. BenDavid, what was your entry point to Scott Pilgrim? Was it the film or was it the graphic novel?
So I read the first book. I got it at like a comic shop, or I don't remember, when I was in college at Iowa State, and I was really insanely into it. I bought all of them the day they came out.
You're about 5 years younger than me, I think.
I don't know. I mean, we'll never know.
No one cares.
We can't. There's no way to ever prove that.
He's not the exact same age as me.
But I crashed a couple test screenings of the movie. I like went to the premiere at Comic-Con. I probably saw it in theaters so many times I can't admit. I was and I played the video game. So when the game came out, I got a couple cans of Four Loko when they first came out, and I didn't know that it had caffeine in it, so I drank 2 of them, and then all my friends left my house, and then I was like, I feel incredible, like I'm going to stay up for 10 days, and so I played the game straight through until like noon the next day and beat it. So that's the extent of my fandom of Scott Pilgrim, and then I never thought about it since.
So how did a super fan and the creator come together to make this?
We were friends for a very long time. We became friends almost like 13 years ago. He keeps saying in interviews that I gave him a script of mine to read, and he liked it, but that's not what happened. Was someone else gave him a script of mine, and we had mutual friends. We'd hang out, and then he liked it. And then he was like sharing seconds with me, and everything I ever wrote, I would share with him. And we would just, for a decade, everything we were working on, we would share with each other. Like if I'd have a cut of a movie, he'd watch, or a show, and we were just always talking creative.
And seeing movies. And you showed me a lot of movies, because I missed a lot of movies in the 90s and 2000s, because I was either too much of a snob, or I was drawing Scott Pilgrim and I didn't have time to watch
he had a snob era where he wouldn't like watch like Steven Seagal
the
movies
90s, okay?
or whatever. Like everything that is like Lucas
You
Lee.
had to pick sides back then.
Yeah, I never had sides. I just watched all kinds of bullshit. Long story short, Netflix and Science Saru decided they were going to do an anime. Edgar didn't want anything to happen unless Bryan was a big creative force. Bryan mentioned, it's so cool, I love Science Saru, but I don't want to do the same story again, and that sounds like hell to me. And he spent a year like stalling on it, keeping it from happening. And then one night we got dinner, and it was not a work dinner, and I was not pitching. I'd never thought about it in my life, and we were saying, it'd be cool if you could reshape it so Ramona was the lead. It would be really cool if you could spend more time with the exes. We were talking about all these things that would be cool that you can't do with the normal story. And then I blurted out, well, I mean, if Scott dies in the first fight with Matthew Patel, seemingly,
solves all our problems.
And then I also came up with the idea of what happens in episode 4, which I want to spoil.
We won't tell you that yet.
And I was just goofing around, and then Bryan's like, dude, what if we actually did that? And then we spent hours drinking sake and eating sushi and talking about what that would mean emotionally and narratively and whatever. And then
we figured out a lot of it kind of at one dinner.
Yeah, so like most of the macro stuff we figured out in that dinner, starting with my insane idea that I'm so grateful that you thought was worth doing. And I'm sorry if you're mad about it, but it is all my fault. I was the one who thought that's how the pilot should end. But Bryan supported it terribly.
Well, yeah. I think at heart I'm a little bit of a trickster. And, you know, it always appealed to me in the original book that it's very, very normal. It's like a slice of life comic for about 120 pages. And then you get to the end, and there's this crazy thing happens, and this crazy fight happens, and all this kind of magic. And the world departs from realism. And but I've done that. So you can read about it on Wikipedia. You don't even have to watch the movie. You can just read about it.
All your cool, weird ideas were normalized. So
Exactly.
we had to figure out a way to make when Matthew enters the story be as shocking as it was when you first read the book. Because now you know there's going to be fights and all this stuff. So it's like, how do we come up with an idea that is as much of like a lightning bolt as that first time you either saw the movie or read the book, and then that scene happened where it kind of like shook you, and you're like, anything can happen in this story.
Right. How do we throw out everything, but it's still Scott Pilgrim somehow?
Yeah, and the great thing about it was every decision or weird idea I'd have, this guy would be sitting next to me, and every once in a while he'd go, "That's not Scott Pilgrim," or I wouldn't have written that joke. So then it just
my
none
job
of that
is to
stuff
be a
ended up
dick,
in the
yes.
show. He was a great filter for ideas. That there's a lot of stuff that I was like, I have the best idea ever, and he'd be like, no.
What was the one idea that was like the quickest no for you?
Oh, I don't know. I throw them away immediately as soon as I hear a bad idea.
Yeah, I have to forget that stuff too. There's too many other things to think about besides with the rejection. That's like,
Yeah.
But the show is like 1,000 new ideas that we both liked. So yay for that.
Yeah, I mean, after that dinner, we worked on it for like 3 years. So it's not like, the idea is one thing, but the execution took a long time.
It's so weird to like watch his stuff now. It's like after the premiere, even though like Edgar read every script, he's seen everything. when episode 3 ended, I was like, do you know what that line, everybody likes closure, that's why closure is a reference to? And he's like, it's a reference? I'm like, obviously it's from David Mamet's Heist, and the line when Danny DeVito says, everyone likes money, that's why they call it money. And he just looks at me like I'm insane, and I'm like, I am, it's fine. But hearing that tonight, I'm just like, how did I get that in the show? Like,
someone
nobody said
laughed
no.
at it, so
yeah,
that's good.
there was like 2 or 3 laughs, so it was worth it.
Nice.
I thought it was good.
Congratulations.
Yay.
We were talking backstage about, keeping the ending of episode 1 a secret. How hard was that? And we were talking about this, but you kind of put it in the title. I don't know how people didn't see it coming.
Please don't tweet this, but yeah, the title says it. So like, if anyone's like, well, this you sold a different show, I'm like, the title says he leaves. That's the it does. That's why it's called that.
We're tricksters.
Yeah.
But in
I
a
hope you're
good
not
way.
mad.
In a good way. You guys, wait, did you guys like it? Yeah. It's such. It's
The jury's
pandering.
out.
Yeah.
That seems mixed.
Yeah.
So how did you get the band back together in terms of the incredible
literally.
cast?
Actually, literally.
Exactly. Getting them back together to do the voice acting, and it's, were they excited about the opportunity? Did it take some time, convincing?
We got Finn Wolfhard back as young Scott. Like, I can't believe he came back after working on the movie.
I
He
know.
was so good in it.
He was so young back then. I mean, we're blessed with our history. Edgar made a movie that people like, and that the people who were in the movie also had a really good time on. We were all here almost 15 years ago, January 2009. I remember I came to Toronto. It was cold as fuck, and my dad bought me a winter jacket, which is still the winter jacket I keep wearing to this day. We made a movie, and it was just like a beautiful, blessed time. And for some reason, all of these people have gone on to be galactic superstars, and yet they still have fond memories of that time.
Nobody ever has a good time making movies, even hit movies. And the thing about it that is a miracle, as like Edgar talks about a lot, is like it came out and it like didn't do as well as everyone wanted to, but no one was like embarrassed about it. Like a lot of times people's feeling about an experience is predicated on, was it a hit? Did it win awards or whatever? But they all loved making it so much, and they were like stayed in touch forever. And our show was greenlit without a cast, and I never ever thought we were gonna get everybody back.
We hoped, but yeah.
Yeah, and then we'd already started making the show, and Edgar emailed everybody at once, and literally, it sounds like bullshit, but it's real. It's like within 3 hours, everyone had said yes, and I was sitting on Bryan's couch in his garage office, and I remember literally screaming at one point. Like, it sounds like, but I was just like, I'd spent so long working on this, I never thought they would all say yes, and then they did like immediately. You spend a lot of time working on it, you're like, well, maybe a couple of them.
Well, yeah, I mean,
don't
you've
know.
made movies, and people say no all the time.
Oh, people love saying no.
It's the easiest thing.
And it's also just like, even if they had a good experience on the movie, they might find out this premise and be like, what? Like, the most insane thing was like, what if everyone had said yes, and then Michael was like, I don't like this.
Right. Every day we were scared.
No, and people every once in a while be like, well, maybe we should put Scott in it just a tiny bit more, because what is Michael gonna think? And then Michael read it and was just like, this is the funniest thing ever. And then he was so happy about it, and that was a huge relief, because if he didn't get the joke of that and he was like, it's called Scott Pilgrim, and I'm Scott Pilgrim, and I don't see me in episode 2 or 3.
Right, a normal actor might say that.
So, yeah,
Sorry,
and
not to say he's not normal.
But who wants to be normal? Yeah, but that's the thing to me, that they all were stoked about it, and then they like it now that they've watched it. It wasn't guaranteed that they were going to do it, and it wasn't guaranteed that they were going to like this idea. I could forever be the guy who ruined it. And
Yeah,
so
I would blame you for sure.
I mean, everyone's on the record that the big hook was my dumb idea. So like, I could have been thrown to the wolves.
Yeah. But I remember Michael emailed the cast after he read the scripts, and he said, I believe his words were, "This is our chance, guys," and that was it. And I was like, "Our chance to do what?" And I kind of feel like it's like a vibe. But it was a positive thing. He was very positive.
When he saw episode 7, he texted. He said, "This better win some Oscars."
Classic thing for anime on television to do.
I mean, anime wins Oscars all the time, man. I feel like our chances are pretty good.
This is our chance.
Speaking of anime, what freedom as storytellers did anime give you in terms of telling this specific story?
Well, I mean, you saw some of it. Those fights.
Yeah, you knew you could come up with an idea that was insane and they would make it even cooler. Like I could say, hey, well, you know, if in the world of Scott Pilgrim, it makes sense that if you're fighting and you get smashed into a video thing, you're suddenly inside the world of movies. And usually you'd say, there's a term people say all the time, like that's execution dependent or whatever. But we never had to worry about Saru making our insane ideas work. We knew we could write a 2-sentence thing that was bonkers, and then they would just hand us like gold. And
beautiful, emotional, insane gold. Yeah.
But the thing about anime, like we could spend 1,000 hours talking about like why that is so great for this. But the thing that I loved about it is that you can go really big and really small. You can have something that is tiny and slow and intimate and emotional, or you can have like two guys cackling while a camera's pulling back from a chair like big evil villains, and it all works together in a way that in a lot of other mediums it wouldn't. Like all of our weird kind of combinations of tones and stuff works perfectly in that world, especially when we have like one of the coolest companies ever. Like we love Science Saru. Like we were huge fans before we found out they wanted to do it. So then we just wanted to write something and make something that was good enough to be worthy of them.
Yeah, I didn't want to disappoint Science Saru. I certainly didn't want to disappoint the cast.
Those are the two things I worried about. That was it. I was like, I hope the cast likes it, and I hope Saru doesn't hate us and they enjoy the show. Those are the two things where I was like, okay. Otherwise, I'm like, this is awesome.
What about the fans in this equation? Because the universe and the fandom
It hasn't come out yet. We don't have fans.
Yeah, this show doesn't have fans yet.
Did you feel pressure in terms of doing the story justice?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I love fans, and fans can be the most critical of all. So, of course, I'm actually absolutely terrified of the online reaction when this comes out. But every time we show it to people, there's just so much love in the room. And that was our intention.
And I am fans.
He is fans.
That part of my brain will never go away. Like at the same time, I think what fans hopefully want is I just wanted to kind of over deliver in a way where people will be like, well, I never expected to see all these things. I never expected to have a different version of the Roxy fight where there's like emotional catharsis instead of ending on a joke. There's all kinds of stuff upcoming that you've never seen before with characters that.
There's more surprises.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, there's a lot, and there's so many like different things that I never dreamed of as a fan of the books and games and movie. So our hope is that if we deliver them a bunch of new fun stuff, they'd be like, okay, cool. But that's out of our control. Like,
well, I mean, it's kind of built like, in my mind, it's like, I want you to be disappointed for like about 5 seconds and then realize that what's happening is really fun and have fun and just go along with it.
Yeah, the first episode, it's sort of like, hopefully you get to the end of it and be like, oh, this is cool, but I guess I don't really want to see the same story again. Oh, and then episode 2 is like shaking you and going, anything could happen. And then episode 3 is like, this is the show. And I mean,
episode 2 is literally like 2 scenes, and they're both insane. The whole Envy Adams scene was so much fun, and then the whole Evil Exes reunion is just like, how did I not write something like that in the books?
I like with everything on this. Every time I get proud of myself, like episode 2, I'd be like, I wrote so much of this, and I think it's so cool. But then Bryan is the guy who's like, she has to sing "I Will Remember You," and then he's also the guy who wrote a huge email to Metric convincing them to do it. And then I'll write a scene. I think this is really great. He's like, it's not good enough. He has to be like my underwear. So that's a great thing. Is like you can never be satisfied because he'll just show up and make something better. So thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, I mean, and thank you guys for laughing at I Will Remember You. And also, I don't think I've ever seen like a reveal that a funeral is happening get such a big laugh. So that's great.
Yeah, her entrance makes me so happy, and then we have like the limo thing from the video game too. And I just want to mention, I love the score to the show so much. So An Monoguchi, who did the game, and then Joseph Trapanese, who's like a friend of mine who I do everything with, they kind of joined forces as Voltron, and the score is like, I'm so proud of it, and it's so weird, and it's got all these different kind of feelings to it, and it's like the mystery thing feels like a Giallo, and there's stuff that feels like Carpenter, and it's all. So, and some of it's like exciting and emotional and funny and stupid. It's like, and the soundtrack comes out on digital next Friday. I mean, this Friday.
That's this Friday.
We've been on this for years, and I just keep feeling like it's so far away, but it's like now almost. Anyway, and it'll be on digital, and then we'll announce some physical version of it sometime soon.
Vinyl eventually.
But there's like a 65 track version that'll be on Spotify on Friday. That has so much music. So if you did like the music, you can listen to that online and
soon,
stuff.
Very soon.
I'm going to throw it over to, I'm sure, a very eager audience to ask some questions. So if you could raise your
real
hand,
moment.
and I will find you. I'm going to go.
This is our first audience questions
here,
ever.
Right
so.
there. Yes,
might
we have
just
a
run
mic
away.
behind you. Thank you.
Can you stand up?
I can't stand up.
I'm mainly just seeing a light, but I can
Hello.
hear you. So hello.
I don't know how much you can say about it right now, but like Kim and Knives question mark?
What about them?
What about them? Oh,
We don't talk about that.
no.
Oh yeah.
They'll
you
never
guys are
speak
on
of that again.
Yeah.
Just like in the books, it was at a time where Knives was able to like mature a lot more than when
Right.
she was at the beginning, very much more of an adult than she was at the beginning. So like, will we get to see her mature? Will we get to see anything from that relationship?
You're gonna have to watch the show to find out.
But it was really exciting to write Knives stuff that has nothing to do with Scott. That's one of the fun things about just seeing what would happen with her now, pulling him out of the equation. And my favorite scene in the whole season is when she plays with
Yeah, you
Kim.
just saw Knives and Kim. They had a whole scene together.
love that scene.
I love that scene so much.
But I think her performance is so good in the season, and she has some stuff that I really, really love coming up. So we'll say that.
We'll see.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go right in the center, actually, where the mic was just passing. Yes. If you
Wristband?
could, if you're able to stand
No?
up.
Which one's standing up? There we go.
There.
Question for Bryan. Because the show is set in a particular period in Toronto, and this applies to the movie as well, did you ever feel at some point when writing this iteration of Scott Pilgrim that you were reconstructing memories of the city the way that so many people are, given how fast the city changes?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying it takes place in like Scott Pilgrim time. Even when Edgar was making the movie, he kept calling it the Amelie version of Toronto. Maybe that's a dated reference now. Amelie had like this magical version of Paris back in the day. And he also like used obsolete tech and stuff. You know, we had old cell phones and old computers in the movie. So in this, yeah, we just kind of wanted to kind of like, I don't know. It's the Toronto that's in my heart, I think. So I haven't lived here in a while, and I know it's changed a lot. I know everything I love turned into a condo. So except for Sneaky D's, it's still here. And it's in our intro, which is lovely to see every time. But yeah, I mean, you know, I love this city, but yeah, I love it in my head and in my heart, the way it used to be. And I hope you guys appreciate that too.
There's a question right here, individual in the orange jacket, if we could get...
Way down in the middle.
Yeah.
Helly
There's
handsome.
a mic coming to you. If you're able to stand up, please do.
Thank you guys for passing that mic. That's very
Thank you.
helpful.
You said that thing that you learned from Lost at Sea was using references in your
yeah.
art.
Lost at Sea is my first book.
What do you think that some of the biggest things that you learned over the time making comics into making films maybe were maybe from Lost at Sea to Seconds to now?
Oh my God, that's a huge span of time. That's
Sorry.
my entire life. Well, I mean, yeah, using reference was the big one. I mean, on this, I didn't have to do any really visual heavy lifting. Like Science Art took care of everything. Yeah, I don't know. It's such a broad question. I've learned so many things. I think I've just kind of learned to let go a little bit, especially with this. It was so amazing to collaborate with so many people. You know, I've always been like a control freak. I've always done everything all by myself. So being able to hand stuff off to people who are way better at drawing than me is really incredible. I recommend it. And I'm so happy with all those results, like from the animation to the music to the cast to everything, like, and to BenDavid being my co-pilot here. That was huge for me. I've never gotten to do that before with like such a large cast of characters.
Yeah, when I make stuff, usually for me, I'm all about like control and stuff. Even though like the best idea wins, but in this case, a lot of things were like, it felt like a game of telephone where we would like have something and then throw it out in the world, and then 9 months later we would see a thing, and it was so much cooler than we expected. And my whole goal of this entire show is to feel like this is a version of the story that could never ever happen unless these group of people did it.
Yeah.
Like on my own, it would never be this. On Bryan's own, it would never be this. Without Saru, like we're giving them things that are like different than they would do. The music is the same way. It just felt like this really cool hive mind where like everyone's stuff added up to something new. If that makes any sense.
If that helps at all.
All right. There's a question at the back. Yes.
Way up that way.
If we could get a
In the
mic up
hinterlands.
there as well. I mean, if you're able to stand up, that'd be great as well. Just so
we can see you.
Yeah.
So I noticed there's a lot of references to video games. You know the
Oh, there
scene with Matthew with the 2 arms? Is the background song a reference to Final Fantasy?
Which scene?
The one where he has 2 arms fighting Gideon on the roof. Like
mean-
4.
Oh, 4 arms.
Yeah.
2 extra arms.
I mean, the music there is a direct homage to Matrix 3 and Duel of Fates, but
And
instead
Final
of
Fantasy 7. Yeah.
I was thinking of the One Winged Angel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another thing that has chanting. Yeah.
yeah, well, we're
You're
like
thinking more Matrix.
Well, I was. It was explicitly Matrix 3 and Duel of Fates, and we're like instead of chanting Latin, they're singing evil exes over and over again. There was a point when I had that idea while driving, and I pulled over and made a voice memo singing evil exes and sent it to my composer. And then, literally within 5 days, Bryan and I were on a stage with a choir singing evil exes, and then with a live orchestra doing it, and no one stopped us.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought Final Fantasy 7 too. I mean,
Well,
that's just another good
everything is
chanting
Final
song.
Fantasy 7. That's a good cheat code because that game is perfect. So.
I believe there's a question actually right in front of the previous question.
This
so if
guy
you're
right
able
here.
to stand up.
How's it going, guys? Thank you for coming here tonight. My question is about, I guess there's an angle on this for both of you, but what is it like for Bryan working with someone who's a fan of your work, and BenDavid working with someone that you're a fan of?
Working with someone who's a god.
Hey,
I mean, we're friends first. So like, I didn't meet him as a fan. I met him as a writer who's talented, and yeah, he's a fan of a lot of stuff. So
I've worked with my heroes before, and it's been terrible. Like this is Bryan's one of my best friends. So like, if it was just like I was a fan of his work, it actually wouldn't work. I mean, the reason why I'm really proud of the show is like we had no egos about anything.
yeah, you could tell
Like,
me if it was a bad idea, and vice versa.
Yeah, our rule was that nothing would go on the show that either of us hated, but that also meant you had to tell the other person if you hated a thing that they were doing, which you can't do unless you've known someone for a very long time.
Right. If it's your hero, you're not going to be like, oh, it's
That
terrible.
I mean, but that's the only reason the show exists. Is like if I was just a fan, I'd probably be like, well, Bryan, I don't know if we want to do that
Right,
about a lot
exactly.
of stuff.
We should keep it
Or you'd
exactly
be like,
the
shut
same."
up, fan, if I had some weird ideas.
Yeah.
But we had a mutual respect thing. We've also just, if you have like a billion conversations about creative stuff before you make a show, it makes your life a lot easier.
Right. If you watch every Fast and the Furious movie together multiple times.
Yeah.
Then you're family.
Yeah. I mean, but to be fair, the first 7, yes.
The first, sorry, yeah.
But I do
The-
like 9.
I don't count the rest, yeah.
I have a Nas tattoo that you can't see here, which is
He has a lot of tattoos that you can't see.
it's the Shaw thing still drives me nuts.
I only have one. It's right here.
What were some of the things you were watching when you were in the writing process that were inspirational to
Better
what
Call
we
Saul.
see on the screen?
Yeah, but we watching a lot of stuff from Saru while we were
Yeah, keep
breaking
your hands off
story.
Azokan.
I mean, the biggest thing though that like probably inspired all of it was Twin Peaks: The Return. Bryan came over and watched all of those with me, and it was mainly just a feeling of like, oh wow, there are no rules as long as you still kind of follow the sensibility of the original thing. It's not like we were like trying to do a 1-to-1 of that or anything.
Right. But yeah, it's a good example of a show where the main character is kind of absent for a period.
Well, I mean, if they got away with that, what can you get away with?
Yeah.
There was something recently where you're like, oh, it was obviously this, and I already forgot. There was like some show where you're like, well, this was clearly our biggest influence, and I forgot.
Oh yeah,
it.
we both forgot.
Yeah, we're really good at remembering stuff for
But
Q&As.
yeah, there was a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies and
Yeah,
anime.
and there's also just like 10 billion things in here that are inspired it or getting referenced or like And it's like every episode has like a million of things. Like even like the cross cutting of like the scene before they're in bed is like very out of sight. There's all these like insane things that we
Shout out to
somehow
Steven
got into this dumb
Soderbergh.
thing. Yeah, he's very good. I guess we'll answer another question.
Should we let this guy do a question?
Yeah,
He's had
sure.
his hand up the whole time.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry to gender you.
Thank you.
So you talked about Final Fantasy VII a few times already, and I just wanted to ask, because when watching this, I was reminded of the remake for subverting expectations. Was that something you kept in mind? Did you think, well, Final Fantasy did it, so why can't we?
Honestly, I haven't played it because
I'm so sorry for spoiling it.
No. I mean, I've heard that it diverges, and
Does
especially
Scott die in that one?
Does Scott die in Final Fantasy? Well, the other one we didn't watch until we were kind of done writing was Evangelion.
Yeah, the easiest comp are the rebuilds.
Yeah, if you guys have seen Evangelion, the creator redid them as movies, and at first it's like word for word the same, and then it
feels like
keeps
exactly
getting
the
weirder
same,
and weirder.
then it just makes a giant left turn, and then an even bigger left turn, and then a bigger left turn, and then it's like in space.
Yeah, the fourth rebuild is like beautiful. It's so cool.
I mean, yeah, I like as they get further in even more and more in the last one. I think it's like a masterpiece. But
yeah,
there's like a lot of things where people we respect have kind of like gone back to their thing in new ways that was inspiring and like emboldened us in the same
well,
way.
I mean, yeah, we all kind of live in an age of reboots and remakes and stuff. So it's like, you know, the more of them you see, you're just like, hey, what could be different? How can we play with this remake thing?
What can we get away with?
Yeah.
I think we have about time for 2 more questions. I'm going to go to the blue shirt right in front of me.
Scott and Ramona.
Exactly.
Hey, I just wanted to ask, how does it feel to be coming back to an IP that you started almost 20 years ago? Like, I was a kid when the books started coming out, and I was 10 when the movie came out.
Whoa.
So to be 23 now...
What a
Oh my
brag.
God, that's why you're dressed as Scott Pilgrim. Wow.
Exactly. But to be coming back to an IP now 20 years later for an entire new generation of fans, how does that feel for you?
A little scary, I mean, but ultimately good, I think. I'll know more in about 30 hours. But yeah, for the most part, you know, it's like I love the fans. I see the fans whenever I go anywhere in public, and they know I'm there, which is not every day of my life. But if I go to Comic-Con or something, you know, I talk to people, and I see them, and they love Scott Pilgrim. I see their chatter online. And I wanted to give them something that I need to give back to them somehow. I need to share that love back to them. So this show is all about love, even though it's a little tricksy and you know, it's a prank. I do all that out of love, and I just want to inspire joy in people. You know, joy and emotions and sadness and cool fights.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that we did that was new is because we love it. It's not like because we don't. It was more like, what is this thing that we love that we can expand and make more complicated and weirder and try to make all the characters have you learn things about them you didn't even know. We just
Gordon Goose.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't know that was his real name or that he was from North Bay, Ontario. And there's a lot of stuff you don't know about the characters yet. You'll find out if you keep watching the show. But I mean, it did, like, sometimes when someone does something like this, it feel like it's coming from a place of like, I don't like that thing, so I'm going to change it. Mm-hmm. This was like, we love this so much, we cannot believe someone's going to let us make something new. So let's like see what we can do. You know, like how far can we push this, especially with these great actors. It's like, what new stuff can we give them to do as well?
I mean, having fans is just kind of humbling, and you know, I don't know. My life changed because of you guys. So it's just nice to be able to make another Scott Pilgrim after all these years. You know, I didn't work on Scott Pilgrim for a long time. I've been working on other stuff, but this show just sort of started to happen, and it just all started to fall into place, and it really felt like the wind was at our backs, and this was the right show to be doing.
Last question. I'm going to go right here.
Yes, that's you.
And thank you to our amazing mic runner, by the way. You're doing awesome.
That's Mike Runner.
That's
Michael
a great
Runner.
name, Mike Runner. Detective Mike Runner.
Wow.
Do I stand?
Sure.
So I'm also 22.
Wow.
It's hard for me to separate Toronto and Scott Pilgrim sometimes in life. My question is, initially, before Scott Pilgrim was Scott Pilgrim, your voice is so hyper aware, I think, of what's around it, and Scott is so not, right? Was that shared? Was that validated when it initially came out to your close friends? Because I know that Toronto is so much of the story. Was that
books, you mean?
validated initially?
You mean when I made the books?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like I made, like I said, like my first book, Lost at Sea, was kind of like a sad boy thing, and then I was in a band and I gave them a copy, or you know, I passed around a copy of my book, and they're like, "Oh, it's cool, man. Yeah, I like it." And I was just like, "How do I do something that they'll enjoy, or that'll make them feel good, or that'll make them laugh?" And you know, I started working on this little indie rock story, and threw in all these other elements, and you know, and my friends did laugh, I believe, if I recall correctly. And yeah, and then the Toronto thing, you know, it's just like I said, it's all around me, and it was easier to draw Toronto than anything else because I lived here, and I was in a band, so it was easy to draw guitars and amps and shit like that, and venues, and I just kind of wanted to be true to my milieu when I was your age, and I hate the word milieu. But
I don't even know how to pronounce it.
it's French. You have to become Canadian to pronounce it.
French?
You know, I just tried to kind of, it's like I'm reporting on what I see, and for some reason it resonated with not just Toronto people, but around the world, apparently. Every time I go to another city, people like Scott Pilgrim, and I don't get it, but I mean, I'm touched by it every time. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you.
Well, thank you for helping put Toronto on the map as well.
And if you like the show, please tell your friends to watch it. And if you
Don't
didn't
tell your
like the
friends what
show,
happens.
don't
Tell your
them
friends
not
to watch the first
I don't
two
know.
before posting anything online.
I'll end it. Thank you for coming out. It was really, really nice watching this with a bunch of people, and we really appreciate it. So,
thank you guys so much.